everything with the dinosaurs from the minute the action starts to the end of the movie. I've had an entertaining time. You think a dinosaur is going to eat him, something else happens, and it is seriously one of the funniest scenes in the movie. If I had to rank these movies right now, Jurassic Park, Lost World Jurassic Park, but I will absolutely put Aloha, movie nerds, dorks, and weirdos. Welcome to New Movie Tuesdays. I'm your host, Matthew Salanoa. Today marks the first test of my little podcast recording setup here. I hope the mic quality is better. This is a donation from my sister, who is an excellent music artist and an excellent artist in general. And we're testing this out today. For today's episode, I'm disgusting. Disgusting. For today's episode, I am a little bit disgusting. For today's episode, I'm discussing Jurassic World Rebirth, directed by Gareth Edwards, starring Scarlett Johansson and other people. All right, and in honor of the 7th Jurassic Park movie, even though I'm not considering it Jurassic Park, I am going man boobies out. That's right. Love on that internet. Body positivity, body positivity. Jurassic World Rebirth stars Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey, Luna Blythe, and briefly has Ed Skrein. David Iacono steals the scene as the village idiot of the movie, who has a heart of gold. This is a really fun movie. I also want to shout out Manuel Garcia Rolfo, who plays the dad of this small Latin family. They are going on a trip around the world and get themselves caught up in the events of Jurassic World Rebirth. Shout out also to Adrina Miranda, who plays the daughter, the youngest daughter. Luna Blaise plays the older daughter. David Iacono plays Xavier, who is the older daughter's boyfriend, who is a bit aloof and really shouldn't be there. But he has a heart of gold and totally steals the show. I have to admit, something that's not a secret. I'm not a fan of the Jurassic World movies. I haven't been a fan of any of these movies since Jurassic Park 3. I have a deep love of the first Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg. I also have a deep love for Lost World Jurassic Park, also directed by Steven Spielberg. And a lot of people love to hate that movie, but I think Lost World Jurassic Park has some of the best scares and some of the most amazing sequences. And I love the vehicles, the tech, the production design. I think that what we benefit from Lost World is just jumping into the adventure without needing the setup. The first movie does a great job of setting up all of the emotional stakes and the themes that are so important to the movie: evolution, Frankenstein, should we be making something or not. And also, as I've discussed on my Why It's Great podcast, there's a personal family storyline in this movie, the first Jurassic Park, that makes that movie work. And it's something that regular audiences don't pay attention to or care about. But as a filmmaker, seeing every movie from the filmmaker's point of view, it's what I care about the most, because this is what I've studied, this is what I dream to do, this is what I've worked on for decades, almost 2 decades now. Is really actually understanding what makes the movie work, not just the audience reaction or whatever the studio wants, but what makes the movie work. And that first Jurassic Park, whether you believe me or not, what makes that movie work is the setup. Not only the setup of how all the science works, which I think is by itself a fascinating element to the movie, but when we look at Alan Grant, that is a great character established in the beginning, who played by Sam Neill, Alan Grant wants nothing to do with kids, and he has a great introduction where a kid is at the dig site. Where they're all digging up dinosaur bones, and the kid is not impressed with this visual graphic of a very large velociraptor bone fossil, and he's not impressed. It's like, it looks like a giant turkey. And that's when Alan Grant has the famous speech where he tells him how dangerous this giant turkey actually would be. And it's all set up for the fact that the very following scene, he doesn't like kids. He doesn't want anything to do with them. Then Hammond shows up, gets him to go to the island, and this is his company, InGen, and his grandkids are there. And they're only there because, backstory, Hammond's daughter's going through a divorce, and so he's taking the kids so they don't have to deal with anything, but also so that his daughter can deal with the divorce. But more importantly than that, Alan Grant, who has been set up as not caring about kids, is now forced into all these kind of comedic situations where the kids want his attention and he doesn't want anything to do with them. And a large portion of the second half of the movie, once all the dinosaur carnage occurs, is Alan Grant being forced to be a father figure, to be a protective person over these people. Now, this isn't in the book, but this was Steven Spielberg's adjustment to the movie that gave Alan Grant's character somewhere to go. Because when you're making a movie, you have two options. You can have a character who is challenged or a character who changes. And in the case of Jurassic Park, Sam Neill's a character who changes. The whole theme of the movie is evolution and how life can get out of your hands when you try to make something that you think you can control. It's the Frankenstein story in modern day era, presented through dinosaurs. So that's the obvious themes of the movie. It's not hiding that at all. It's from the book. But the less obvious aspect of this movie is you're watching Alan Grant over the course of this movie become comfortable with being a father figure, even though he's established at the front of the movie not having any interest in being a father. So, and it's not explained with any words. You just watch him become comfortable being around the kids. And, when push comes to shove and dinosaurs are attacking them, his paternal instinct is, oh no, I got to look out for these kids. I can't just let them get in harm's way. So, despite how much he says he hates kids, the story forces him to change and realize, no, maybe there's something here that I was not appreciating or couldn't appreciate before. And so the meaning of the end of the movie, when when the people that do survive get onto that helicopter, we see Alan Grant with the kids next to him, and he looks at Ellie, and she has a smile on her face because she's been trying to, back during the comedic situations, Ellie was kind of pushing the kids to spend time with him and try and hoping that he'll come around. And this happens without words. This entire character transformation, with the exception of the introduction where he says he's not interested in kids, with the exception of that, his entire character arc happens without lines. It happens purely through action, purely through watching his performance. And this is something, as a filmmaker, I recognize that the audience is absorbing it without being aware that they're absorbing it. And that's what your job as a storyteller is, to just set up the circumstances for a character to be challenged or changed, and they will either be challenged or changed by the end of that movie. So to me, that's what makes the first movie work, is that you have this excellent character arc that for the large part of the movie goes utterly unspoken, especially as in the book there's no basis for it. But within the movie, you have the entertainment value of, haha, he doesn't like kids, but the kid's obsessed with his book and wants to tell him how his book sucks compared to another archaeologist. You know what I mean? Like, you get the ha-has up front. But then when the T-Rex attacks, what happens? He totally shows up, and he cares more about taking care of the kids than anything else. And so those final moments are powerful because it's not just about how life finds a way, and when you invent dinosaurs they can get out of your control. It's just as much about how life finds a way that even someone like Alan Grant, who is a bit older and kind of seems to be stuck in his ways, even he can change and evolve. And when he looks out the window and he sees the birds flying, this is exactly referring to the first thing we see when the first thing he says when he's introduced. And he explains that dinosaurs didn't just perish, they evolved into birds, modern day birds. And even the word raptor means bird of prey. So he's someone with vast intelligence who's really got a solid grasp on so much of the dinosaur existence, both in the dinosaur time and across time, leading to the present. But he himself has some growing to do, and that's what occurs by the end of the movie. That's what the birds symbolize, is that he's looking at the evolution of the original dinosaurs, and he himself has evolved, and only by evolving is he now flying, right? Which the helicopter also represents. That now man can fly, now man can evolve. And so he has evolved by the end of that movie, and that's an emotional touchstone that we all feel when we watch the movie, whether we're aware of it or not. And that's what your job is as a filmmaker. That's what I am fascinated by as a filmmaker, which is why I do feel that when you get to that second movie, people know that it's not there. You know, there is a father daughter relationship with Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum's character, and I don't have the actress's name off the top of my head, but you know, he has two female relationships. He has also Julianne Moore, who is like his on again off again relationship, and you know, it's just not as strong or as powerful as everything with Alan Grant. And I think people feel that so strongly, whether they can put it in words or not. And it's that absence that makes the adventure less terrifying because now you're not as invested. The first movie does such a great job of getting you invested. For me, I don't care. I think the second movie gives me what I need for the story to keep going and the plot to keep going. And I just enjoy being thrown into the adventure. I already know who Ian Malcolm is, so I already want him to make it. And I'm young enough not to know who Vince Vaughn or anyone else is, so I just appreciate who their characters are and the adventures that they go on to. I still think Jurassic Park 1 and 2, they're not going to be topped as far as my opinion goes. But when we get into Jurassic Park 3, you know, we have characters I don't care about in silly situations that don't really matter. And I just think that that movie is the beginning of terrible mistakes being made across the Jurassic World trilogy, the initial one with Chris Pratt. And not that I want to take anything away from Chris Pratt or the filmmakers. I don't want to like say something to stab at these guys because look, this is the job I want to have. And the last thing I want to do is like talk terrible stuff about these people who I would love to meet and work with at some point. You know, so but that being said, what the movie is to me, the first Jurassic World is first of all, it's like Star Wars 7 and no intentional shade on JJ or anybody involved with that. When you look at Star Wars 7 or Jurassic World, you know, these are nostalgia bait movies that replicate what the first movie does, but they don't really bring anything new to the table. And the new things they bring to the table are not so important that they make a new story. And so people know they're eating nostalgia bait. They'll get the most out of the first movie, and then once you deviate from that, then people are really realizing, wow, this ship has no direction. So when it came to the Jurassic World movies, I think the worst thing they did was making them action movies and not adventure movies. Adventure means you're still afraid people are going to die. And then when you have Chris Pratt being posed as this really crappy version of Chris Pine from Star Trek, you know, oh, he's the womanizer who doesn't care, or even how he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. When you just have him typecast and type playing, it's not interesting for either the actor or the audience to have to shovel through a very vain, silly, unimportant piece of dialogue that's just, it's so blatant with itself. They're literally saying, "Oh, you don't want to hook up with me. Oh, I do want to hook up with you." It's like 13-year-olds wrote the screenplay. And again, I don't want to throw shade on these people, but that's how it's coming off when you're watching the movie. Especially when you look at, again, you compare it to the Grandpappy Jurassic Park, and you look at Jurassic World. It's like, no, this is not gonna pass. You know what I mean? Forget the pumps, running around in pumps. The dialogue itself is not acceptable. And turning Chris Pratt into an action hero that the two boys idolize just automatically in that movie. And then from then on, just leaning in on Chris Pratt being an action hero for 3 movies where it just doesn't land. You know, you're not landing that fish, and it's again because you're trying to make an action movie. Or in the second movie, you're kind of trying to do a horror, but you know, then you get to the third movie, which I'm glad I slept through, because I knew right from the first 5 minutes. I mean, this movie, it doesn't matter what I watch. It does not matter what I see. And by the end of the movie, I see all the characters together, and I realize I've probably seen the best of this. I slept through the entire middle 2 hours and 20 minutes of that movie, and I have no problem with that because I just feel like, look, you know, I see what you guys are doing. Everyone sees what you guys are doing. It's really, it's disingenuous, and it's nostalgia bait, and people know it, and it's terrible to do that to your own audience. You know what I mean? An audience that expects you to care, and then you make these movies that are very vain and self-important and clearly ticket grabs, and you've destroyed your own brand by treating your product this way. And I think Star Wars had the same exact problem, where you think that people are impressed by practical effects and X-wings, and no, again, it's the magic sauce that's underneath it all, which is a good story. And whether you like the Star Wars prequels or not, there's still a story there. There's something the filmmaker is trying to say. You know what I mean? And when you remove having something to say, but not only that, when you remove the voice that had something to say, then you're really asking the audience to hang their hat on nostalgia bait. And oh, here's this actor. Remember this actor? It's not okay. It's really not okay. You know, as much as it's nice to see them on screen, if they don't have a good storyline and we're not really earning their presence on screen, then the audience is just going to trash you and abandon you. And I think that's the truth of the nature with all these reboots, is that you're destroying the very IP that you're trying to maintain. But with all that being said, I really enjoyed Jurassic World Rebirth. I thought, you know what? It's not perfect, but I admit I did not like the 2014 Godzilla. I liked Rogue One. It was a little bit of an improvement, but I think all of these movies, including Rebirth, each one of these movies, they just struggle with character development, exactly how much character to give and not give. And I think the worst part of Jurassic World Rebirth is the first 20 minutes where they're assembling the cast, and the dialogue, again, it's not that good. It feels very, very similar to Jurassic World, except that they're trying not to have completely obvious waste characters. But it's just it's not very strong when we have Zora Bennett, which is just who comes up with these names? Scarlett Johansson being introduced to the world, and you know she's good, but the introduction of everyone is so clunky and odd, and they're trying to work their way out of the previous trilogy. And the dialogue of assembling our crew, including Mahershala Ali, when we get them all together, people are just kind of randomly telling their own stories. The whole 25-minute introduction chunk of our characters is, it's not terrible. It's not Jurassic World bad, but it's just kind of, it makes me want to leave the theater because it's just not doing a good job of what it's supposed to be doing. And I understand David Koepp is supposed to be the writer of this movie. I don't think that's entirely the truth. I think there's something else going on here. You're telling me that the guy that wrote the first Jurassic Park wrote this. Something's not totally true here. Maybe he did a pass on it, but it doesn't seem like his writing, especially in the first 25 minutes. That just seems like someone else put that there. But beyond that, so outside of that criticism, when we get the opening action sequence, it's not bad. We kind of we get a reiteration of the Godzilla introduction with Bryan Cranston, a scientist running up to a door that closes and there's nothing they can do. But this time around, it's actually a bit more scary. The first scene already starts off with product placement, which I guess someone had to pay for these sequences, so I get it. But it's just a product placement moment that you think is going to be significant. It kind of adds to it, but doesn't really matter. It could have been not in there, and the sequence still would have made sense. So, but the opening sequence is cool. We get the introduction of the mutant Rex, whatever the heck that thing is, bulbous head monster Rex, and that's fine. It's fine. It's not great, but it's not bad. I think it works. It's a fine way to introduce the movie. But then we get into that 25 minutes of stuff that makes me want to leave the theater. Just terrible dialogue. No actor can sell this stuff. Okay, no actor can sell dialogue that is this hollow. But once we get everyone introduced, and then we get to the Latin family that they're sailing, and they get themselves into this whole story and plot, that stuff I believe being written by David Koepp. Everything with them was wonderful. In fact, I wish the movie had been repositioned to introduce the family first. You know what I mean? And introduce them because they were so lovable, they were so relatable, and they just felt like a human group of people. You know what I mean? Compared to our main cast, who are entirely the plot of the movie, and they should have been introduced later. But I actually really love the Latin family. I thought they were only going to have like 5 minutes in this movie, or that they were just going to be like a light part of the movie there for the sake of giving us a little extra tension. No, they're actually a significant part of the movie, and it is quite literally parallel storylines going on. And I feel like that might have been what David Koepp wrote, and someone else wrote everybody else that's in this movie. I really felt once we got to our first major action sequence, which involves the family on the boat, and then leads to our other characters. Once everyone's getting close to the island, and stuff starts happening, I'm immediately locked back into the movie, and I think that's the strength of this movie, is that once the action starts, it really doesn't stop, and the movie just keeps moving, not like at a breakneck pace. It moves at the speed it needs to move at. We have different dinosaur threats this time around. They're not just rehashing, here's the T-Rex again, and we do get the T-Rex again, and that's a very, very good sequence. But on the whole, we're not just getting rehashed. Here's the Velociraptors again. We do get kind of replacements. We have the pterodons, who are more of a threat this time around, so that's a lot of fun. We do get a callback sequence similar to the kitchen sequence in Jurassic Park, just with a different set of dinosaurs, and that's a fun sequence. And then they do it their own way, which I think is the most important thing. It's not nostalgia bait is when you repeat everything the same, and you just think the audience is going to go, I think it's hugely disrespectful and cynical to just expect your audience to go, oh, I watched the same movie but with modern day effects, and so that's fine. And that's not how it works, man. Like, you want to talk about great remakes. 1978, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. is a wonderful update and remake because the filmmaker wanted to do it, not because the studio asked for it, because there was just a need to fill slots. That movie had its own things to say, and it took the premise of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which came out in the 50s, and it updated it, but also had its own things to say. And I think what's great about the best parts about this movie is that it'll take familiar moments and then it'll go in its own direction. And even if it's sometimes somewhat contrived just to make sure people get out of it, I'm fine with it because I the movie does a great job of making me want the characters to live, which is the most important thing. And that is all of that good stuff comes from the family that's in this movie. Like I'm invested in their journey. Is it as well written as Dr. Alan Grant and making me like, oh, what's their evolution? No, but like I said, the actor who plays Xavier, that character, who is someone you just don't like up front, ends up being, one of the better characters who we see, more like seeing different sides of his character as opposed to seeing him change. So I really enjoyed every one. Oh, there's a particular scene with his character where you think a dinosaur, I'm not going to say what kind of dinosaur, you think a dinosaur is going to eat him. Something else happens, and it is seriously one of the funniest scenes in the movie. I mean, I think it's got to be one of the funniest scenes of all the Jurassic Park movies. I think I'm not including Jurassic World in this, of course, but seriously, of all the movies that have had their own little gags, I think as much as I don't like Jurassic Park 3 that much, I can't deny that the Alan Grant dream of a velociraptor sitting next to him and saying, "Hey, Alan," that is still hands down one. It's a jump the shark moment, but it's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. They topped that. They finally beat that, and it's just a moment where this guy's by himself. You think he's gonna get eaten. Something else happens, and it's so good. It's so funny. I thought this is a worth the price of admission moment to see that moment on the big screen, even though technically it doesn't require the big screen because of what happens and how it happens. But you just still, to be in the moment of all this extreme stuff going on to these characters where they're being chased by dinosaurs left and right, this moment of levity was solid. And also I felt a valid Jurassic Park moment. It's a in one way it's a callback, in another way it's something new. It's a again, it's their own version of something we've seen before in a completely different way. I don't want to spoil what it is. He's by himself. You think he's going to get eaten. Something else happens, and it's one of the funniest things in the movie. And when they bring the T Rex back, that's another worth the price of admission sequence. Every single dinosaur scene in this movie is worth sitting through the big screen to see. And I think that's something worth saying. I'm really impressed with the construction of Jurassic World Rebirth. I really feel like, in my heart, this is what Jurassic Park 3 should have been. I really there's so many similar elements to Jurassic Park 3. The worst part about Jurassic Park 3 is the false setups, that you have the William H. Macy who's not actually rich. You have mercenaries who aren't actually very good mercenaries, and so it's just a cast of cannon fodder. And I wish they all got devoured by the end of that movie. And then the worst, most egregious thing is you have the little kid who is basically a miniature Rambo, First Blood. He can just do anything and get himself. And then that particular actor too, who just looks so. He's a good actor. I'm not trying to hate on him, but it's just like you pick an actor who looks like a guy who's on TV and is being given lines that are so Like, no one can make this believable, dude. No one can make this believable. You've set up circumstances that are so ridiculous. I can't buy this. Just let kids be kids, man. I mean, I get that the girl does acrobatics to kill a velociraptor in Jurassic and Lost World, but I prefer that over Rambo Child. I'll take that. I'll take acrobat killing a velociraptor any day over, Ninja Turtles 3 Rambo Child, who has, smoke grenades and is ready and he's like a little nuclear world survivor. You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, no, no, no. Okay, no way. He's male newt at best. And what the hell? So for this movie to give us a regular family who can is a little bit more relatable, and I think that's number one. This is a relatable movie. I think they should have done is cut out at least half of the dialogue between our sort of our Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali. I think there are smaller things they could have done visually. It was just with far less dialogue that could have made them instantly relatable to us. They didn't need to have as much talking between them. So if you just cut out 10 minutes of them yapping and really start out with the family instead, I think this movie it's gonna have trouble grasping people because that I swear that first 20 minutes is just like, dude, like this is terrible. I can't sit through this. You know what I mean? But once you get to the family and the dinosaurs, it's all good. It's all good. And really, the movie keeps a great pace and doesn't waste a line from that point on. But it's that first 25 minutes that you just have to kind of suck up and get through because you want to see the dinosaur action. But I have to say, if you can suck it up for that terrible dialogue, it's not as bad as Jurassic World 1 through 3, but it's still like what you're being fed. You know when you're being fed tofu, and tofu doesn't taste good at all. So you suck it up through that. As soon as the Latin family shows up and the first dinosaur action happens, which is let's just say water related. All the water related dinosaur violence is fantastic. We get the return of the Spinosaur, and in multiple, which was very fun because I didn't care so much about the Spinosaur in Jurassic Park 3 because with the exception of the T-Rex versus Spinosaur battle, which was too short anyway, and I don't want to see the T-Rex get killed, so how dare you. With the exception of that, I just didn't care for what is essentially another T-Rex. You're just giving me a bigger T-Rex, and it's not. You might as well just kept the T-Rex. I don't care. But in this movie, they do something different with the Spinosaurs. I really like their approach with the Spinosaurs. You see that in the trailer, it's a water sequence with the big boat, and it's a great sequence. I mean, I think there's all the good work they do of setting up that family, and even though the character work is not great for Scarlett Johansson's crew, their acting is still good. So you still want them to live. And once the action starts and you see what matters to who, I think Gareth Edwards does a great job of making sure that it's not just I think again the biggest sin of the Jurassic World movies is Chris Pratt basically being sort of a lazy modern day Steven Seagal. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm just so cool, and everything I do is cool, and I'm just cool. You should expect me to be cool. At least Steven Seagal had some cool martial arts moves, and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Not, not I ride a motorcycle with CGI velociraptors. Yeah, I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't care. That's just weird. But to see this movie and to see that nobody's too cool to be scared by a dinosaur, and it's the way they set up these action sequences. I'm sitting there myself going, oh, is anyone gonna make it? How is anyone gonna make it out of this? Which is what you should be exactly feeling when you're watching a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie. And I'm glad it's Jurassic World, not Jurassic Park, because I just feel like leave those first two movies out of it. You know, I don't even count three as a Jurassic Park movie. I think it's tangentially a precursor to World. But seriously, I think this is the most fun I've had since Lost World Jurassic Park, because they remember, oh yeah, dinosaurs, yeah, sure, they're animals and we should care, but they eat people. They eat people. We should be scared of them because they eat people and people get eaten. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing to be scared of if the dinosaurs are just friendly people who aren't going to do anything bad to anybody. There's nothing to be scared of for that. So we got to go back to the roots of like this is it's dinosaurs, they're animals, but it is technically a monster movie. We have to go back to these guys. Yes, they're just trying to eat, but yeah, they're monsters. This is a monster movie. You should be scared when they show up. You should be worried whether your characters are going to make it out. And that was a priority. And I do think of the Gareth Edwards movies I've seen, I like this one the most. I think if he could just really nail his character setups, because that was still my problem with Godzilla. I felt I got nothing out of the characters from that movie. With Rogue One, I know a lot of people love that movie. I still felt like both the character setups and development were not strong enough that I felt something by the end of that movie for anybody. Even though the cast was great and the action was pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's like it's not his ability to direct sequences. It's just it's how we get into those characters. You know, the visual should not exceed the character development. Like the audience, we got to get engaged with these people quickly. But like I said, when it came to the Latin family, we were just locked in, and the writing was good, and the mixing of all the characters once everyone gets to the island, and how they manage to sort of tell two storylines at once, and how they get us to the finale. I didn't think the ending was great. I thought the ending was just about, it was better than the beginning, but I think the real problem with all of the Jurassic World movies, including this one, is that there's no villain. You see, another change from the first Jurassic Park movie, from the book to the movie, was that the T Rex is essentially hounding after Alan Grant and the kids, and the lawyer's with him too. The lawyer doesn't die in the book like he does in the movie, but the T Rex is essentially hounding them, and then just he disappears at the end of the book, and the Velociraptors take over at the end of the book. But in the movie, they do a wonderful job of building up both the T Rex and the Velociraptors, and they bring the T Rex back at the end because you know the T Rex has kind of been tracking Alan Grant and the kids, but there are certain action sequences that are in the book with the T Rex chasing them that aren't in the movie because the Velociraptors were supposed to take over the end of that movie. And but because we know everywhere Alan Grant and the kids go, the T Rex keeps showing up. You know what I mean? And even when they're on the fence and there's that great electric sequence, they hear the T Rex screaming when it hears them. So there's a sense of being hunted by the Rex. So in a way, the Rex becomes the real main villain. Like the Velociraptors kind of become the muscle, and the T Rex becomes the main villain. And it's the same thing they do in the second movie, except now the Velociraptors are amped up. They're a much larger villain in the second movie, which is, I think, gives us such great sequences. But once you get to Jurassic Park 3, the Spinosaurus, again, he's just a bigger T Rex. We have the repetition of Velociraptors being the muscle villains. And then we only get one pterodon sequence, which is it's good, but you know, it because everything else is basically the same as the previous two movies, we don't have as much to go off of. So the Spinosaurus isn't even the final villain that they face. So it just loses power. And then you look at all the Jurassic World movies. Yeah, you get the Indominus Rex, who is the final villain, but his victory is so conveniently won by a team up of the T Rex and the Mesosaurus or whatever that is, the water whale saurus. It's just not a valid victory. You know what I mean? And it's not something that pays off the Indominus Rex's abilities or how scared we're supposed to be. It's just kind of it's an ending of convenience. And then when you get to the second movie, I mean, you get the villain showing up at the end. It's really not that interesting. We have the dinosaur version of what's of Kelly Who in X-Men 2, their long razor sharp fingers. I'm like, what are you even doing, guys? And then I don't know what happened in Jurassic World 3, but I also don't care. So, yeah, we don't have a real villain. You need a villain, and humans being the villain is not that interesting in these movies, because then you're just waiting for them to be eaten. So it doesn't matter. That's again something that held back the first Jurassic World. Who cares? But in this case, for this movie, our funny-headed, weird mutant Rex is technically the bad guy. Or the big bad guy, but he only gets two sequences in the movie, and so while he has brief but strong appearances, again, it's just a bigger T Rex, and I think that's the real problem with the movies. Like, just make it the T Rex then, you know what I mean, or something, or give us a different dinosaur. Give us another Rex that's a T Rex or something. I really feel like they didn't need to make this mutant monster Rex, which I do feel like it's a nice closing to the concepts of gene splicing that they did in the Jurassic World movies, which I didn't like any of that. I actually liked what they were going for with this mutant Rex, except I just felt like he's not a consistent enough presence in the movie to be considered a villain. If anything, the pterodons are kind of the villains of the movie, but I didn't feel like they didn't connect our villain stories as well as they did in the first two Jurassic Park movies, which really know how to, like, hey, everyone loves the T Rex. Just give them the freaking T Rex rampaging through downtown San Diego. That's all people just want to see, that Rex doing terrible things to people, and that's what we get. But in the case of the mutant, I'm just calling him Mutant Rex because I don't care what his name is. He looks ugly as hell. But you're more distracted by how ugly he looks. He kind of reminds me of the Rancor. It's more distracting how ugly he looks than just being purely afraid of him. And I think that's something. If they're gonna make another one, just go back to something more relatable. I would say just keep it more relatable. You don't have to do any more gene splicing dinos. It's really not helping your movie. I think the most fun part about Jurassic Park, going back to the first one, I remember as a kid having a Jurassic Park companion book that actually showed you the dinosaurs, and dinosaurs that weren't even in the movie but were referenced, and it also showed you the human scale. And I think the fascination with dinosaurs is not just that it's a well-made movie with scares, but that you can then go do your research and find out, are these real? Did these exist? And it's exciting. I think this is the one case, or one of the rare cases, where you have a science fiction action adventure movie that is also going to make the audience go, I would like to know more. Does this exist out there? And even Jurassic Park 3 had that a bit with, oh, there's a Spinosaurus too, and oh, these are from different generations. They're from different periods of the dinosaur eras. I'm like, and it gives the audience a reason to be engaged beyond the movie, in a genuine curiosity that gives them something to explore and learn about. And that's something that I think, go back to that. If you're going to make another one, just go back to dinosaurs that exist that we haven't seen before. You know what I mean? And then and work on your villain story arc, because at least with Jurassic Park 3, the Velociraptors were after their eggs. And I I like that the pterodons, they are upset. Again, it's an egg storyline, but the egg's not the most important part. The pterodons was just hungry, and that's fine. The pterodons are the villains of this movie. But even then, it's not enough that by the end of the movie, there's not that huge release. I think the first two movies really nail it with the T Rex was hunting for Alan Grant and the kids, and ends up eating the Velociraptors instead because they're the ones that are moving, which is set it pays off all the rules. And in the case of Jurassic Lost World Jurassic Park, you know, the whole notion of bringing dinos to the mainland is such an awful idea that of course the T-Rex is there to let you know, yeah, you never should have done that. I'm eating everybody now, including your dog. And the fact that it's also the whole point of that movie is the humanitarian effort to still preserve the life of what is essentially an animal, and understanding that and appreciating that. And so they try to rescue the Rex, even though it's been this huge menace to society. They're still recognize that it's not its fault that it's here, and we got to get it back onto the island where it can just be eating other dinosaurs. And it really is an epic conclusion. And I don't even care if other people don't like it. I don't care. I love those first two movies, and I think there's a construction to them where the Rex is the villain. Yeah, you got human villains, but they're there as ultimately cannon fodder and to be deserved to be killed. You know what I mean? But in the case of the villain being the monster, you want a monster who is consistently there, who has a big epic conclusion. And I think the problem with this movie is the convenient escapes, or things that they make it a little too easy. You know what I mean? They make it a little too easy, and yeah, I just didn't feel like the finale of this movie delivered quite as good as everything in between. Because I think again, it's a mutant. It's basically a rancor. We know it's a rancor, and you're giving us something we've seen before. And there's been a lot of rancors lately. I forgot what I watched. Oh yeah, in Predator, um, Killer of Killers, we also had a rancor predator. And I swear there was another one. Someone else did a rancor sequence and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you're gonna do the rancor, then people know it's the rancor, and it's just, who cares about these mutant dinos? I mean, I get the angle from the studio side. We got to give them something new, but give us a new dinosaur. Stop messing around with all this weird crap. Like, again, you're struggling so hard on all the wrong things that don't matter. The nostalgia bait, the we got to give them something new they've never seen before. No one's seen a freaking dinosaur before, but people are still watching the first two Jurassic Parks and getting the most entertainment out of them in comparison to the rest of the series. And I would still say, if I had to rank these movies right now, Jurassic Park, Lost World, Jurassic Park, but I will absolutely put Jurassic World Rebirth before Jurassic Park 3. And then it's just a, I'm not even counting the other two. I'm not even counting the other three. Those are at the bottom of a pit, um, from Inside Out, and they're and they need to be faded away. I'm very sorry, um, but yeah, I would absolutely rank this as my third favorite Jurassic movie, because I think the middle section of this movie is so strong and so good. I think Gareth Edwards and team really put their heart into making sure this was an adventure where we cared about the characters, we cared about whether they made it at the end or not, and their the laughs were funny. The laughs were great. The having characters that you laugh at because they're an interesting character, not because, oh, I'm not really a rich man. I'm not really a mercenary. Oh, ha ha ha. Like, such terrible. I'm sorry, I still am mad at Jurassic Park 3. It's the Terminator 3 of Jurassic Park movies. Jurassic World Rebirth is 100% the Jurassic Park 3 I would have preferred if you swap out the mutant Saurus for the Spinosaurus. This is what I wanted out of that movie as opposed to what we got. Even though we have, again, the rich, maniacal guy who can't be trusted, who doesn't really care about human life, you know, yeah, that's a redundancy. But how we get there is fun. What happens with the characters is fun. It's interesting, even though it's not necessarily anything we haven't seen before. It's fun. It's there's something about the movie that keeps me invested the entire time, and it really centers around that family. You know, the having this relatable family, a father who kind of wants to guide his children right, but maybe the kids are going the right direction, maybe they're not, and that sort of are they or aren't they? That's so natural to sort of having a family, which is such a nice dynamic to this movie, which is just a supplement to all the great action sequences that they get caught up in. I really thought, oh, that the young actress who plays the younger daughter, she's so good. And I really like the actress who plays the older daughter. She's got an intensity. I think she's probably going to be something big because she's got the fire. I can see she's got the fire. I love the actor who plays the dad and the actor who plays the crappy boyfriend. Wonderful. Like they stand out to me. This movie should have been focused on them, with everyone else being sort of the support cast. Not unlike Lost World Jurassic Park. We didn't need their details. We just need little hints and nods to their character background so we can understand why they, you know, because Scarlett Johansson's so great. Her character gets too much setup, way too much, and it's just all dialogue. It's like, if you're not going to show me, just shut up. If you're not going to show me your backstory, stop talking about it. Because at this point, it's like 25 minutes in, get to the dinosaurs, dude. I don't care. You know, they overstuff her with background and things that are supposed to make you relate to her character or relate to why she's into the story. It's not. It's so much of it's not necessary. Same with Mahershala Ali. As great as he is, they overstuff the exposition. It's all exposition and not very well done. But it could have been just him touching a picture of his son instead of explaining the entire backstory of what he lost in his life. You know, which is a spoiler. That his backstory, he lost a son, it ended his marriage. But again, we've seen this before. It's something they keep doing in these Hollywood movies. And I'm not saying that's not something that's terrible. It's not something you can have your characters coming in with, but that's what they did in Star Wars, dude. Like, I can't hear the same fucking dialogue over and over and over again. And you telling me this is a new movie? It's like, dude, come up with anything else. Come up with anything else. You know what I mean? Lost in Divorce is fine. Just get us into the movie. Get us into the movie. He didn't need to have a dead son. They did that in Sinners. They did that in Sinners. It's like, how many times can you repeat the same storyline? I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it's like, it doesn't matter to this movie. You know what I mean? Think about the movie that you're in. You know, think about the movie that you're in. You don't need that. Just, he misses his son. His wife won't let him hang out with his son. That's all you need. You don't need dead kid, failed marriage, all this crap. On Scarlett Johansson's side, oh, her last mercenary job, she lost someone, and they died horribly. And then also, because of that, she missed her mother's funeral. It's like, pick one. Pick one of them. And what her mother died of is what they're hoping to get a cure from out of these dinosaurs. It's like, okay, just then pick that. Just pick that. And she's a good enough actress that when people die, I can see that on her face she cares. And that's enough. That is enough. But 25 minutes of this setup of really tacky dialogue is and trying to have a sense of humor as if this is a Marvel movie. Cut so much of that out. You know what I mean? And again, that's what I would. The only thing I would change about this movie. I don't care about the mutant Rex. That could have been a Spinosaurus for all I cared. But also start with the family. Everyone else truncate their scenes. They're good enough actors. Keep them tight. Keep it cute. And you got the bad guy from the first Deadpool, who's also kind of over set up as an asshole, cannon fodder. I'm like, here's a place where you could put some nuance. You know what I mean? Here's a place where you could absolutely put some nuance, or give him the origin of, hey, my mom passed from the very thing that if we get this dino DNA, hopefully we can cure that. You know what I mean? So, just give him an angle. It's just I don't know. I think the character setups are all in the wrong place in this movie, and take way too long to get through. Just stick with the family, truncate everybody else, give us a better finale, because the finale was kind of yeah, I was like, okay, so you're gonna do that, you're gonna do that thing. You watch the movie, you'll see. You're gonna do that thing, and then you're gonna, out of a convenience, say that you didn't do that thing. Okay, fine. But I don't even need to talk about this in spoilers because I've already spoiled the parts I don't like. But what I'll say I do like is I do think everything with the dinosaurs, from the minute the action starts to the end of the movie, I've had an entertaining time. I think of all the Jurassic World movies, I'm glad I went to the theaters to see this one. It was a really fun ride. This is the closest I felt to what Steven Spielberg gave us in the first two movies. I think Gareth Edwards, he's figuring it out. The things I didn't, I mean, I know other people love his movies, so it doesn't matter that I'm not crazy about his movies, because I know he's got a fan base. There's a lot of people who loved his Godzilla, and there's a lot of people, even more people, seem to have loved Rogue One, which I thought was fine, but I didn't care so much about that movie. But in the case of this movie, I think he's really finding his ground. And the team that came together for this movie, it seemed like they cared about the correct things. And so the fact of the matter is, despite the movie's flaws, I would just lump it with exactly like Lost World Jurassic Park. Lost World Jurassic Park did it perfect. Give them just a little bit. Just give our side characters a little bit of character and flavor. We know they're going to be killed. You know what I mean? If they had just done that with this movie, pick your main character. It should have been the family, not Scarlett Johansson. Pick your main character. Make it the family. Truncate the crappy dialogue. And this is a pretty solid movie. But even all those flaws to the side, what a great ride. I really felt like I was on a ride the minute the first boat sequence happens, because there's two boat sequences that start the movie, that start the action. And the minute the first one happens, I'm so locked into this movie, and I'm bought and sold all the way to the finale. Even though, again, the finale's not great, but it's only because I think the first two movies, you just can't top that. But also, I think, again, you're doing that thing? Okay, whatever. And you'll know it when you see it. You'll know it when you see it. But nonetheless, flaws and all, great time. I was really happy with this experience, and I gotta applaud Gareth Edwards, the cast, crew, the team. I think they really focused on the right things, and if they do another one, I will show up. But yeah, you gotta iron out the junk. You gotta iron out the junk for the next one, and just all Hollywood. I want you to pay attention to this movie, and the heart of the movie is this family. If you can just remember that when you're making these nostalgia bait reboots and doing all these movies, remember the heart is family. And the heart is, you know, what is it that gets us attached to these characters? I think the flaw with this movie is that the opening has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, with the exception of introducing the island that we're on. But what makes the first movie work in that opening is that Muldoon, our clever girl guy, he's there for the opening action sequence that ends up killing one of his coworkers. And that event is what starts the entire. Without that event, we don't have this rush need to have Alan Grant and everyone else come to the island and assess the dinosaurs and make sure it's safe and good for the park to keep going. But also Muldoon, he's witnessed the death and he's there to protect them, and he ends up giving his life to make sure people make it out. So his character is there for that entire experience and gives his life to make sure our main characters can live. And there's none of that in this movie, where the opening is so far removed, with the exception of introducing our mutant monster. You know what I mean? And I think that's something. Look, Hollywood guys, come on. These are things already. You know what I mean? You got to get to the heart. You got to remember that movies are all about everything being tied together. It's about connecting the human experience to what we're doing. And if you can't nail that, then you know, I think this movie might have a rocky time at the box office. I haven't looked at any of that, only because it's sandwiched between all these other movies. I think this is a very weird month because all of these huge tentpole movies are right next to each other. What we just did 28 years later, Ballerina, now Jurassic World, and literally a week later, Superman. I mean, it's like you're trying to have movies fail because they're all too close to each other. They should have all been spread out. Because now you've, and then we also have How to Train Your Dragon, the live action. Never mind, we have F1 and all that. So I think this was a terrible place to put the movie. I think not 1 week away from Superman and 1 week after 28 years later. I think that's a bad call. That was a bad call to put this movie between those other movies. But I just want to come out in support of this movie because I think for the first time in 5 movies, we've got a legitimate, or a mostly legitimate, Jurassic Park experience, and the best parts of this movie need to be lessons for the rest of these nostalgia bait movies. Like, we've got I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot. Come on, like, that wasn't even a great movie in the original. Like, they were not great movies. It got a sequel because it made some money, but these Scream was way better than I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know what I mean? That's why Scream is still getting sequels. Like, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Get out of here. Like, I love the cast and actors, but get out of here. Like, this is so done, man. But at least if you're gonna do it, pay attention to the best parts of this movie, and hopefully, there's something in this podcast that you find useful, Hollywood, because we gotta start steering these ships in the right direction. You are crashing into icebergs every single year. It's embarrassing to watch. We need to care about good storytelling first, and also giving people good experiences in the movie theater. And I think this movie, for the most part, delivers that. Let's keep doing that. Let's stay on the right track here. So hats off, team. Go check this movie out in theaters. I had a great time, and I hope you will too. And perhaps next week I will have a review on Superman. 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 All right. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Hopefully, I will see you next time. To all you movie nerds, dorks, and weirdos, mahalo and aloha. And thank you to my sister for donating this little kit here to improve my podcast. And I hope you've enjoyed my man boobies, as I am the Jeff Goldblum of nerds, of fat nerds in the internet. I'm the plus size Jeff Goldblum of the podcast universe. That's right. I'm calling it myself. That's right. Oh yeah. Just imagine a little just imagine a little Alan Grant on my chest when I breathe. Just little Alan Grant right here. If anyone animates that, please put that in and share that with me, and I can reshare it. All right, mahalo, aloha, thank you. Hopefully, see you next time.